Welcome back, everyone. We're making more progress on the motor. Today I'm going to be dropping the pistons in. We're going to be cleaning the cylinder walls for one last time. I'm going to show you exactly how to really get those walls perfectly and thoroughly cleaned in preparation to be dropping our pistons. We're going to be clocking the rings, and I'm going to show you the piston ring, or the piston ring compressing tool that I'm using, and by the end of this video we should have pistons in. So I'm pretty sure the last video that I uploaded where we left off, the crank is actually in the motor right now. As you can see, the crank is good. We sized up our rod bearing, so this is what happened last time. Now here is the ring compressor that I'll be using. This is a Wiseco ring compressor for, we got a glare, hang on, for 87.5 mil size pistons. There's your part number, and this is one of these tapered ring compressors. So in this instance, if you do, these are great ring compressors because they, like I said, they taper, so as you put the piston in, it starts to tighten the rings up the closer it gets to the bottom, as opposed to like a regular like a ratcheting one where it just compresses them all in one shot. I really like these. The downside with these though is that it's one size only, so this is only good for 87.5 mil pistons. I have another one that I used prior, and that was just for 87 when I was doing stock K24 pistons. Personally, don't think they're that expensive. That's why I keep buying those. But if I was doing a lot of engines every day that were different size bores, then I'd probably have to get a different one, or really just buck up and invest in a whole bunch of different sizes of those, which is expensive, but it kind of not saves you money in the long run, saves you time in the long run, because you could just press the pistons in real quick and move to the next one. Touching a little more on how we're going to be cleaning these piston walls. In the video where I was deglazing them, I oiled the cylinder walls with just some regular oil to keep them from rusting. Now what we got to do is we're going to have to use some automatic transmission fluid, ATF. And the reason we use ATF is because it's like a detergent, and as a detergent it's really going to clean every little bit of fine metal particles, or the block was hot tanked, so if there's any leftover material or just grime from the hot tank, it gets all of that out. It really seeps into the pores and leaves it fresh, and as a detergent, really cleaning the cylinder walls, it's going to help break in our rings. And I keep kind of talking about that. These are brand new piston rings. I'm trying to do everything that I can to help these rings seat and break in the best way that they can on the initial startup, so this goes along with it. I mean, you can just use a rag and I don't want to say brake clean, but I mean, I guess if you really wanted to and that's all you had, you can do it. But the proper way to do it is to use some ATF fluid on a rag, on a lint-free paper towel. And I have a whole roll of, where is it? Right there, of the lint-free paper towels. I can almost promise you I'm going to go through that whole roll, because you're going to, the process is you're going to put ATF on your towel, wipe the cylinder walls, and you're going to see a whole bunch of crap on it. That one's done. Then you're going to go to a new one, more ATF, and you're going to keep going until when you go in, when you're finally cleaning the inside of that cylinder, you don't want to see anything. It needs to look the same way when you come out, when you put it in. So that's why I can almost promise you I'm going to go through that whole roll. So let's set you up. I'm going to show you what it's going to look like on the first pass, and gradually what the paper towel should look like. So I have ATF fluid in this little sprayer. I got my clean rag. We're just going to put some on here. Okay. Now with this, we're just gonna go in here and we're gonna start cleaning. Just gonna wipe. That's all you gotta do. Make sure you get all the way into the cylinder. All right. So let's see if the camera can actually pick up all the dark area around. This is everything you do not want on your paper towel. We're gonna get another one, do the same thing. Okay. Second time around is actually not that bad. It's picking still up some dirt and grime, but it's still staying a little more pink this time. Maybe 2 more paper towels. That looks almost pretty clean. Now, I don't know if the camera's really picking up the color of this, but I'm gonna go in there with a dry paper towel now, see what it comes out as. This was a dry paper towel. Cylinder number 1 is completely clean. That's ready for a piston. Now with the number 1 cylinder ready to go, we're ready to drop the piston in. As you guys can kind of tell, I'm alone in the garage today. So it's going to be kind of hard to show you guys the way you should be clocking your rings, but I do have the diagram to show you the orientation that I'll be using. I've showed you guys this diagram before. This is when we were gapping the piston rings. This is from Wiseco themselves. This came with our rings, and this is going to be the way I'm going to be doing them. Now, just to explain to you what ring is what, when they talk about the oil rails, those are the 2 rings that go on top and bottom of that squiggly oil ring. Those would be these bottom ones right here. As you see, it's got that squiggly one, and then it's got one on the bottom and one on the top. Those are your oil rails. So your top oil rail is going to be in this top left corner. Now this is the way you're looking at it. The front of the engine would be to your left. So we'd look at it when we're putting the piston in number 1. The front of our engine is here. Our top oil rail is going to be on this side of the piston, this top one. Our bottom oil rail gap is going to be on this side, and then the actual oil ring expander, which is the squiggly ring, that's going to be straight down right here. So this is the way we're going to set up those bottom rings first, and then the top 2 are a lot easier to move around because they're a lot bigger, so you can move them by finger. The top ring is going to be in this corner, and then your second ring is going to be in this corner. So basically, if you just look at it, all your rings have to be staggered because you don't want any of the combustion chamber gases or crankcase gases to flow up anywhere through the piston. That's why these rings are always going to be scattered or off-centered, all differently. Keep in mind, they will move a little bit over time, but they shouldn't cross or intersect each other. I have my number 1 piston now, kind of like in the same video when I was showing you guys to gap the rings. I hope you numbered them, because now this is where it matters, because these rings were gapped for the number 1 cylinder. This is why this is our number 1 piston. And on most factory ones, you will actually see they'll have an arrow showing which way is the front of the motor. In this aftermarket, this is a Wiseco piston. You can actually see the intake reliefs are a lot bigger than your exhaust reliefs. So that's how I know this is the way the piston is going to be dropping in, because this is the front of my motor. The intake is on this side, the exhaust is on the other side. So this is how the motor is going to be dropped in. You can kind of see the top ring. Let's see if it focuses in. Maybe not, but my top ring is gapped right in the bottom right corner, just like how they were showing. So the second ring should be gapped right here on this side, which should be on the left. And as you can see, the second ring is gapped right there. The bottom ones are super hard to show you, so that won't even pick up on camera. So now this is ready to be put into our ring compressor. One extra tip that I do is before you install your piston, make sure that the cylinder you're gonna put the piston in, that crank journal is all the way down. That just kind of prevents you from, if you push the piston down too quickly, that if the rod is just off by 1 hair, it can actually damage your journal. So if the rod journal is all the way at the bottom of the stroke, you have more time to, when you push it, correct it and guide it down onto the journal. Since we're going to be working on number 1, I have the rod journal for number 1 all the way down at the bottom of its stroke. That way when I do push the piston down, if it comes down a little too farther than what I want, the journal is now going to be up here and the rod can nick it. That gives me some time so you can see how low it is on that one compared to number 2. It's still up there. I wouldn't put a piston in right there. I would spin the crank and bring the journal down. So that's just a quick tip. Make sure that the piston you're installing, the rod journal is all the way on its lowest stroke. So right before we install the piston, I'll grab my ring compressor. I like to put a little bit of oil inside of it. That just helps the rings slide into the compressor easier, so when it tapers down, they don't really fight you too much. Okay. So that's ready to go. Now we'll grab our piston. We'll double check our reliefs, make sure they're facing the right way. I'll double check my rings, make sure they haven't really moved. So those are all good. Then we're going to get our assembly lube, and we're going to put our assembly lube on our bearing right now, because once this goes in there, we can't reach the bottom of it. So we're going to assembly lube the bearing, make sure our rings are all set, and then we're going to start installing it onto our ring compressor. So we got our assembly lube on our bearings, got our reliefs the right way, checked our rings one last time. They're all good. Okay, so now we're going to install it into our ring compressor. And if you feel it gets stuck, just try to move your rings around. They might just be getting caught up. Like this right now, it's getting a little stuck. So what I'll do is I'll just push some of the rings in, and you can see it actually just starts to fall into place. We're going to push the piston down until the skirt starts to come out. That skirt's going to guide us into our cylinder. So we're going to just go right in. Again, I can't stress enough, just keep double and triple checking everything you're doing so our reliefs are right, because this is the last time this is going to go in. Get our skirt in there. Okay, that's good. Now, before you push it down, you want to center your compressor, or just kind of make sure it's completely flat onto your deck. So you'll just push the ring compressor down, kind of tap it a little bit. Just make sure it's as flat as it can be. Now, one of the many reasons, well, the main reason why I really love these ring compressors is because of the taper. What this taper does is it's actually going to, as the piston gets lower, it compresses your rings, and it just makes it so much easier to push the piston down into your cylinder. With the regular ratcheting ones, you have to really compress it so tight so that way the rings don't move, that it actually locks the piston. And that's why you'll see people use like rubber mallets or wooden handles, and they'll tap the piston down. This tapered compressor takes all that work out of there. It does all of the work. So all you have to do is just make sure you're square, you're centered out, it's as flush to the deck as best as it can be, and just light push. You should be able just to push the piston down with your fingers. I'll just demonstrate it. So everything is good. We're squared. So just light finger push, and that's it. It goes right in. If when you're going in you feel like the piston gets stuck in any way, stop. Come back out, because that means that this wasn't square onto your deck, and one of the rings actually popped out from the bottom and it got caught up right here. So that just went in nice and easy. We're good. But always just, it's a feel thing. So now we're going to go down. Just go down nice and easy. Go down about halfway. And what I use is I'll use this little pick thing. It's a long pick, and what I do is I'll stick this at the bottom of the block. I'll find one of the bolt holes on the rods, and I'll use this as a guide, just to guide the rod onto the journal so it doesn't nick anything. Okay. Piston's bottomed out. Now we'll get our lower cap. We'll put some assembly lube on this. So with assembly lube on our rod, or on our cap, we're going to put it onto our crank or onto our piston assembly. And when I mentioned the tangs before, when we were doing the bearings, in case you forgot, this rod can, the cap can go on either way. The way to remember the correct way to do it is your tangs line up on each side. So this tang is on this side. When I put it onto the piston, this is going to go on the side with the tang, not the one without the tang. That's the way they're supposed to go, just in case you forget which way this goes on. Under our tang. Put that on. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to run these bolts down finger tight, because like I said, I am going to be stretching these in a separate video to show you guys how to stretch the rod bolts. It's that simple, guys. The tool really makes this job so much easier. It makes you feel so much more confident when you are installing it, compressing your piston rings. Number one is in there, nice and easy. I'm going to time lapse really quick, putting the rest of the pistons in there. I feel like some people actually like enjoying watching someone go through the whole process rather than just me explaining one and the rest is done. If you are into the time lapse, let me know, leave a comment, and that'll actually help me improve these videos on what you guys want to see, or if you like the time lapses or you don't want to see them. I don't know what I just said. Just let me know if you like the time lapses or not. I'm gonna set you up. We're gonna finish the rest of these pistons. Darling, you send me. I know you
Darling, you send me. Darling, you send me. Darling, you send me. Darling, you send me. Send me.
All right, so that is it. All the pistons are installed. Everything went together so smoothly. Quick side note, if somebody's got a quick eye and you noticed in that time lapse, this red line loop, assembly loop, like I said in a previous video with the wrist pins, it is so slippery and slick that all I did was turn the bottle a little bit and just a ton just poured out onto the crank. So I had to clean that up, but just quick warning when you are using that red line, just be careful with it because it is super slick. So but it works great. This crank and piston assembly, everything rotates so smooth. Let me show you. It takes little to no effort to turn this crank over. Just check it out. I mean, wrench came off. I absolutely love how smooth everything went together. That just makes me feel so much better about my clearances too and my bearings. The rings sound like they're making they're scraping nice against the cylinder walls. Everything went together so good with this short block. Now I'm not torquing down the rod bolts yet. I'm going to end this video here, and I'm going to make a second video following up right after this on how to stretch your rod bolts. In my personal opinion, I believe that is the only way you should be torquing down your rod bolts, is torquing them down and then stretching them, because the main failure that I've read about and that I haven't personally seen, but that people have told me about, is just rod bolts come loose from not being torqued correctly just because you go off the torque setting. And because these are aftermarket rod bolts, they are meant to be stretched. Again, I'll cover all of this in that video. I appreciate you guys watching these videos, and I hope you're taking a lot out of these videos. Thank you for the support. Honestly, the comments and the likes really just help my channel out a lot. It helps me, and all that help that I get goes right into this build. So I really appreciate everything you guys are doing, and I'm glad you guys are liking these videos. But I will catch you guys in the next video. Stay motivated and keep making those streets louder.